And we're committed to updating the GRA to introduce self-declaration for trans people.
We don't think that self-identification is the right way forward.
It's also quite alarming just for any man to get into his 60s and discover that men have penises and women don't. Makes you wonder what he's done with his life. But no, of course, this is all just this. I mean, it's so pathetic watching him wriggle like that. Why doesn't this man, if he wants to be a leader, why doesn't he just have the courage to say what everyone knows is true and say, of course, it doesn't mean we need to be unpleasant or mean or anything like that to anyone who believes that they're born in the wrong body.
Douglas Murray didn't just brutally troll Starmer. He took him down before he even stepped into office. Yes, you heard that right. Murray slammed him before he even had a chance to reveal his terrible policies. He preemptively sensed that this guy can't be up to no good, and guess what? He was absolutely right. Douglas claims that he isn't a prophet and he just kept his eyes open. Today, we're going to listen to some absolutely savagery a la Douglas. Let's begin.
What sort of UK are we going to see under Labor, which is hardly a moderate or centrist party nowadays?
Well, it's a very interesting question. The answer is really nobody knows, Rita, because the Labour Party, the leadership, has been fantastically good in recent months of not telling us really anything that it's planning to do.
Starmer is predictable, like a well-worn path that leads to the same place every time.
It's doing the usual thing of saying, they're going to protect the NHS and pour more money into it. They're going to make schools even better than they are. They're going to raise everyone's living standards and all the usual things. And as I always say, these things are pointless to say unless anyone says the opposite. Nobody says that we would like to lower living standards. Nobody says we'd like to make education worse. This is the kind of pabulum we all have to tolerate in election season.
This thing where they refuse to say what they want to do is the type of stuff that won't really make you that popular among the people when they do find out, but subtle enough so you won't lose any support. A flawed democracy indeed.
But the really interesting thing is, of course, is that the Labour Party has been wise enough not to tell us how it's going to pay for any of this. And that's because there's really only one way they will be able to pay for it, which is to raise taxes. And they know that you cannot say in your manifesto, that's why we're going to have to raise taxes. So all they're doing is waiting until they are in office, and then we'll discover what they really intend to do. It's a pretty shocking situation, actually. I mean, the Tories only have themselves to blame, as you say, but they're hemmorrhaging votes in every direction. Some Conservative voters will be voting for the, more moderate than Jeremy Corbyn Labour Party. Others will be staying at home. Others will be voting for the Liberal Democrats because they can always sponge votes off other people because they're even more of a Blair as a party than Labour is trying to be. And of course, they're losing votes to Nigel Farage's Reform. It's an absolute cluster for the Conservatives.
Douglas is a clairvoyant. Look at what Keir Starmer said right before entering into office. He literally made a vow not to resort to that. And now, fast forward to today, and just take a look at what he succumbed to. This is what happens when politicians forget how hard it is to keep a promise. Pathetic.
And a couple of polls this week show them actually getting behind Nigel Farage's Reform Party in the polls. And as you say, I mean, not only a wipeout for the Conservative Party, but such a historic majority for any party, let alone the Labour Party, that basically Keir Starmer will be able to do whatever he wants in the next 5 years.
Well, Labor from the top down over the recent years have embraced just about every neo-Marxist folly, from taking a knee for BLM, remember that, to pushing the most extremes of trans activism. But Keir Starmer has suddenly discovered the startling news that men have a penis and women have a vagina.
5 more years of the Keir Starmer experiment. Though from the looks of it, seems like in his eyes, we are the experiment. Day after day, pushing a different button just so he can see how far he can take us. After all, we are the tolerant Britons that accept all the war-ridden immigrants of the world into this country. So we will surely tolerate everything from politicians too.
It is a departure from what he has said in the recent past. Indeed, he is performing quite a few backflips in this area. Let's have a look.
A woman can have a penis.
Nick, I'm not... I don't think we can conduct this debate with,
Trans rights are human rights, and I support the right to self-identification. I think we need to respect the right to self-identify, and we're committed to updating the GRA to introduce self-declaration for trans people.
We don't think that self-identification is the right way forward.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right.
Is it right or is it wrong for Rosie Duffield to say only women have a cervix?
Well, look, biologically, she, of course, is right.
She's right.
So open-minded indeed.
It's extraordinary, Douglas, that a man who is in his 60s now has such a fluid value system. 1 minute something is harmful and transphobic, next minute he's happy to scream it from the rooftops.
Yes, I mean, it's also quite alarming just for any man to get into his 60s and discover that men have penises and women don't. It makes you wonder what he's done with his life. But no, of course, this is all just this. I mean, it's so pathetic watching him wriggle like that. He failed to stand up for his very brave female MP, Rosie Duffield, when she simply stated biological fact. He spent a long time doing exactly what we saw him do in one of those interviews, which is, well, it might be true, but we shouldn't say it, as if facts are sort of offensive.
He do be more interested in people's feelings that are not white and straight, which is why he's always so afraid of acknowledging why people don't trust immigrants, and he struggles with the most irrelevant of problems about trans. We miss you, Farage.
And always this dance, it reminds me of the sort of the religious wars of the 14 and 1500s, when people were sort of forced to say things or forced to denounce things, even if they believed them. And it's like that. Why doesn't this man, if he wants to be a leader, why doesn't he just have the courage to say what everyone knows is true and say, of course, it doesn't mean we need to be unpleasant or mean or anything like that to anyone who believes that they're born in the wrong body. But that doesn't mean that facts aren't facts. It's perfectly straightforward, and it's very telling about him, because, as I've written before, the problem with it isn't this issue itself only. It's that anyone who's going to be blown by a cultural wind that way, which wasn't the case merely 7 or 8 years ago, the next cultural wind will blow them again and again and again. And who knows which winds will blow in the next 5 or 10 years whilst Keir Starmer is Prime Minister.
Exactly. Why can't he say this? Now watch the type of anti-patriotic tweets people from administration post.
One thing you can count on is this loathing for the West, particularly their own history and sometimes their own people. And I want to have you to have a look at this tweet from someone who's going to be a Labor front bencher, probably, Jess Phillips, mocking a guy for wearing the St George flag as a cape. Of course, England were playing, the football team was playing, so that's what that guy was doing, supporting the team. I don't think, Douglas, you would ever do that, mock someone for having a Palestinian flag draped around their neck. But if it's a British symbol, then they feel emboldened to shame someone on social media.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is. I mean, you mentioned earlier, Rita, that they listen to focus groups. Would that the politicians did listen to focus groups? They don't. They listen to a few deranged harridans on their own side most of the time, screaming banshees from the culture wars online.
Only in a masochistic place like the UK would the population be so eager to elect people that are so openly hostile to the pride of this country and have the tendency of joking and making fun of people that are patriots. But it's okay. At least now people will know who not to vote.
The real public, the normal public, want to have nothing to do with that nonsense. You know, and the normal public believe, quite rightly, in Britain like elsewhere, that, you know, if your national team is playing, you know, that's the team you support. And your national flag, you know, might be a flag you're able to fly and even be proud of. But as you say, Rita, we live in a strange era in the West where you can be proud of everything apart from what is yours. Any other flag, Jess Phillips, who's another example of us just sort of swayed by the wind. Every gust that blows takes Jess Phillips with it. She likes to present herself as this, working class, straight talking woman. She isn't. She's an absolutely typical automaton of the era who says whatever she thinks she has to say to get avoiding the banshees that are howling. And yes, I mean, there's this sort of snobbery about this, and there's nothing wrong with being proud of your national flag.
Not very different from all those authoritarians. The priority is always to get the win first and to deal with the mess later.
But as you know, it's only in the West that we beat ourselves up like this and tolerate politicians who scorn the public for being proud of their country.
How ironical is that in North Korea, people get arrested for not loving the state hard enough. And in the West, politicians get praised for talking down on this country, While we are still on the topic of North Korea, maybe we might also want to take advice from them on immigration policies.
And I have to take you back to Keir Starmer here, because his response to the rise of anti-Semitism seems to be to speak more about the dangers of Islamophobia. Here he is with London Mayor Sadiq Khan doing just that.
One of the things that is coming up over and over again is Islamophobia. And, well, you can see the stats, you can see the numbers rising, particularly since October the 7th. Although we shouldn't fall into the trap of thinking that before October the 7th, this was all heading in the right direction. It's been far too high for far too long. Clearly, we need to just say over and over again, Islamophobia is intolerable. It can never, ever be justified. And we have to continue with a zero tolerance approach. And I think there's more we can do in government. There's certainly stuff online which I think needs tackling much more robustly than it is at the moment.
This man has an unhealthy obsession with Islam.
There you go, Douglas. We can look forward to more online censorship and campaigns to silence criticism that is deemed Islamophobic under Labor.
Yeah, I would just like to put to Keir Starmer what he would do about something like that attack I just referred to in Toronto last week. If a Muslim mob shouting Allahu Akbar and shouting about the dirty pigs and rats in the Jewish neighborhood, if anyone criticizes that, is it Islamophobic or not? Is it possible to call out Islamic anti-Semitism? Or would it be Islamophobic? He and the other people pushing this have to be able to answer that question. Is it Islamophobic to notice that the marches that have defiled the centre of London week after week since October are predominantly, very largely Muslim?
He would say that they are indeed Islamophobic, because white straight Britain's accusations of phobias weigh 4 times less than from someone representing a marginalized group. Damn, this Starmer guy seems to really don't know his stuff.
And that many of the Muslims on those marches are saying intolerably racist things. Is it Islamophobic to point that out? They're going to have to work this out, because if they don't, it's just going to be a huge and colossal circular firing squad for the coming years, metaphorically speaking for now. And the lack of thought that people like Starmer have put into this, the pandering to communities, is, I think, a recipe for absolute disaster. You can stand up for the rights of all of your citizens to be able to live in peace, but that means standing up to hatred wherever it comes from, of the most extreme kinds. And Keir Starmer would find it easy, I'm sure, like all of us, to stand up to any actual far-right extremism. Can he stand up to the Islamic extremists? We'll see.
That was a tad bit dramatic. Well done, Douglas.
You'll have your own strong viewpoints, but I believe that they can be civilly put. I don't think that wanting to ensure the future survival of my people is unacceptable or should be seen as offensive to other people. We have a right to our exclusive identity, our home, history, heritage, culture, and to exist as a people. Nobody has the right to take that from us. The people who are trying to take that from us are the extremists, in my opinion.
And I didn't think that feels at all like exclusive or kind of contradictory with this lovely man could make a home here, because he's a gift.
From the Picts and the Romans and the Saxons.
How do we explain that to 1 million white children that have been raped in racially and religiously motivated crimes by people of his community. How is my community supposed to reconcile the fact that they opened up their doors, gave refuge to people that said, please, let us come here for a better life, and then what do? Rape, rob, extort, terrorise and kill our people, and you expect us not to be angry?
Well, we've seen enough already, and I think we already made up our mind. Anyway, that's all we had for today. If you want to see a video where Douglas Murray responds to some prominent voices in the UK threatening him with being silenced after destroying Keir Starmer, then you can click on the video on screen. And we'll catch you in the next video. Peace.